Here, we'll start here with Aztec Mike, and he goes, "Hey, Saw, how about those Aztecs? Get the broom out, beating the preseason favorite. No excuses for Boise. They don't get a pass because had bad shooting night. It was the Aztec defense in your face, Boise."
You know, most amazing thing about Boise, they've got a really good big man in Tyler Degenhart, and he's a third-year starter. And he plays San Diego State, and he gets spooked. He gets defended. I mean, Guath how many block shots did Magoon have in the Boise State game?
I think he had 5.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Degenhart just totally disappears against San Diego State. And so, the Aztec system and the Aztecs defense. But in all honesty, Mikey, only counts as one win. Now, if you can duplicate that intensity and that consistency offensively and what they do defensively, if you can do that at Logan, Utah Saturday, then I'll say these guys are back together. But they've been so Jekyll and Hyde and so ineffective. You know, we saw them beat 6th-ranked Houston early in the season in the Vegas tournament. And I thought, hey, this is going to be a really good season. But then we saw them regress. They stopped shooting. The threes stopped going through the net. Then their defense got lethargic. Their benches got very erratic. Sometimes their bigs played well, and sometimes they let the other guy get 44 boards. So I'm not totally convinced, unless they're going to do this every game going forward, starting Saturday at Utah State. I still think they're a bubble team, especially if they get zinged up in Logan, Utah. Then I just don't know how they're going to win the tournament. And if they don't win the tournament, all these losses pile up against them, I think.
They have a shot to win their final 6 because 4 of the games are against, lesser teams. I think Air Force, Wyoming, San Jose State, and I think Fresno, so those should be wins. And so then you got to go on the road. Utah State, New Mexico comes to Viejas. Those are the tough games. And I mean, I'll say it now. I think the Aztecs could run the table on these last 6 and get into the number 2 seed for the tournament. And then, all bets are off. Here we go.
Well, neutral floor. That won't be like playing in front of the crazy people at Viejas. And neutral floor with a team that's been highly erratic, that's different than being highly erratic and playing at home where somebody might throw a light switch all of a sudden they're playing great basketball. Let's just see what happens at Utah State. But that was an important emotional win because they hadn't done that with much consistency for a long period of time. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Okay, let's keep going. We'll go to Rick, and he says, Stanley Cup has lived in the USA since 1994.
I got Don Cherry's cell phone number. Do you want to call Don Cherry when we get done from Hockey Night in Canada, because he is all Canadian all the time, and just inform him that we have now ownership of the game. The game of hockey belongs to the red, white, and blue this side of the border in Duluth. He'll go crazy on you. But it was great. And I would love to see an international tournament, a global tournament every year in place of the NHL All-Star Game, which had degraded into nothing more than open shooting, breakaways, and slap shots. Make it worth something. And this tournament has been all about global passion. Well, I mean, Sweden, Finland, they don't like each other, and obviously Team USA and Canada, there's a lot of history there too. So if you can make this a global thing every January in place of a bad All-Star game, man, that'd sell the sport even more. And right now the sport's on an emotional high. I did a mini poll on X, on Twitter, and I asked the fans, what are you going to watch this weekend? And most of them said it was kind of a break between NASCAR and the hockey. I think those were the two biggest ones. They were getting 32% of the vote. So Sunday night, I did a follow-up mini poll. What did you watch this weekend? Did you like? 81% said they watched USA, Canada hockey.
Yeah.
81%. Just amazing. And then there might have been 18 or 19% said they watched NASCAR. Hardly anybody watched golf, which kind of surprised me. And like 4 mothers of players probably voted they watched the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA All-Star Game was just a train wreck. But when was the last Canadian team to win the Cup? Was it the Oilers?
It's been a while.
So if it was in 1993, but that's after the Gretzky trade. Mm-hmm. But they did, I think if I remember, they did win it shortly after trading Gretzky, didn't they?
Sure.
So that must have been the time. because it ain't the Canadians or your Maple Leafs, that's for sure.
Oh, my Maple Leafs haven't won since 1967, but since being the richest team in the league, they were just absolutely stunning. Okay, all things hockey. Rick, you'll have to message us back. Do you believe what I believe, that we should make this a global tournament every January, not a bleeping all-star game? Okay, Rick, thanks for being with us.
Okay, here's Callan. This is going to have some more hockey talk. He says 4.4 million viewers for USA Canada, peak audience over 5 million.
Not bad for, quote, an all-star weekend, huh?
Mhm.
Wow. It was really good hockey. Didn't like the beginning, hated the booing, but as the wife said, they weren't booing the national anthem. They were booing the president. They got a right to do that too.
They do. Man, they do. Okay, let's keep going here. And I should have put Matthew to the front of the line here. Matthew, thank you for the donation. I dislike the new new age NBA fans. I'm in my 20s and fondly remember the 2000s basketball and even the early 2010s, back when the game strategy was more diverse. These new NBA fans hate it when you point out how boring the product is now.
Charles Barkley and Draymond Green this weekend ripped the NBA in public at press conferences during the All-Star weekend. Quality of play, attitude of the players, lack of team camaraderie, no toughness, etc. You got your own marquee stars denigrating the product that pays them lots of money. I don't know where Adam Silver, the commissioner's head, is. It's like he's walking around like there ain't no problem. It's a hell of a lot of problem. Your TV ratings are in the tank, style of play is terrible. Your players have no respect for each other, no respect for the coaches, a lot of disrespect towards the media and the fans. You tell me everything's fine in the NBA? I don't buy it. They really need an attitude adjustment in the leadership of the National Basketball Association. Now, I grant you, when we get to the end of the season and the great teams play the great teams in the playoffs, that's a different quality of content of game. But the rest of this is terrible. Am I right or am I right?
You're right. So, I mean, if you go back in NBA history, let's just, for the sake of making the conversation easy.
It's not Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird.
Well, that's where, like, I think the NBA began to have an identity when Bird and Magic. I mean, there was a little bit, obviously, with Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. But once they had Bird and Magic, you had the Showtime Lakers in the 80s. I mean, that was an electric time. I think of the 90s, not just the MJ6 championships, but I also think of Pat Riley and the Knicks and the Pistons and playing the thuggish ball. And then you get to the 2000s, and that's the Kobe era, where, you know, he was on full tilt all the time, there to win. Love that, his passion. But I don't even know how you would categorize or describe the NBA today. It's just kind of meh, especially the regular season.
It's a bunch of independent contractors that just don't mesh with anybody. They're all for themselves, which is, you know, I watch these festivities and the 3-point shooting contest and all the bonus money and all, you know, the NBA Cup in November. And yeah, I want to see a guy making 40 million or 50 million a year play hard so he can get another 100,000. Crap, that's terrible. Do something different. That's why I think my Team USA versus the world, with all the money going to charity, that should be the mode.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We just got to get the players to play up.
Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Let's give Matthew another shout out here, because Matthew does super chat donations on YouTube where you can make a voluntary donation to the Hacksaw podcast. And Matthew says silver is a big reason why the NBA product is poor.
Well, he replaced the departing, since deceased, David Stern, who navigated the NBA into the big time business. The NBA is making a lot of money. It had a flashpoint time where their TV ratings were just phenomenal, and it had great personalities, it had great players, but the game has changed, the leadership has changed, the style of play has changed, and the players themselves from a mental, emotional standpoint have changed, not for the better. There may be great athletes out there. I mean, I've sat courtside and I marveled at how phenomenal these athletes are. But I don't see the esprit de corps. I don't see the camaraderie. I just don't see the style that I used to see growing up or when I first covered the NBA. I don't know what Silver is going to do to fix this, because he's just walking around as if everything is beautiful. I can't find anything beautiful about what I'm witnessing right now. And, you know, prime example is Jimmy Butler, who creates this crisis with 4 different teams, gets his ass traded, winds up going to Golden State and gets a pay raise out of it. as if he did nothing wrong and leaves behind this wreckage in Miami that he created. And then you got Phoenix, where this non-basketball owner comes in and he inherits and trades for all these guys. And now he's got square parts, round holes, old players, injuries, and attitudes from guys who say, I'm not waiving my no-trade clause to go somewhere else to help you. Bad set of circumstances. And you got the freaking incompetence of the Washington Wizards. Look how bad the Chicago Bulls are. You know how many bad teams there are in the NBA? And how many incomplete young players there are in the NBA? Something's got to change. And Silver's just holding press conferences as if everything is beautiful.
And wasn't he proposing to reduce the game time from 48 to 40 minutes?
Yeah, one of the ideas.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's that going to do? But, this is something I've often wondered about, is in Major League Baseball, you see the players really excited, and, they'll come out and, like if it's a walk-off, there's a big celebration on the field. This sort of thing, in some ways, it feels a little orchestrated, but I wonder if MLB is doing that to create more energy and passion for the fans. The NBA doesn't do anything like that. In the NBA, they fine you if you come off the bench.
Well, that's if there's a brawl. That's the aftermath of the Malice and the Palace and the Detroit Thugs.
See, I wonder if there's something that can be done. There's got to be a way to make the game more passionate without doing like a dumb rule change.
I'll think about that over a cup of coffee, and I'll give you a different opinion probably on Thursday. But Adam Silver's they got to do something to fix this game. They really do, because this game's getting left. The afterburners of what baseball's become, what the NFL is, and all of a sudden hockey has become an in thing. That's all because of action. Okay, Matthew, thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go here to David. Also, thank you for the super chat, David, $4.99. MLB #1 prospect, Rookie of the Year.
Possibly. We'll have to see how he holds up. But again, the Dodgers are going to handle this with a 6-day rotation once they've got the starting pitching to execute this. This kid's gifted. Now, this kid's not a complete pitcher. He's a 2-pitch pitcher, and he's got the 3rd and 4th pitchers. Things are going to work on. But I don't think there's going to be the pressure on him that there's been on other guys. I don't think there's pressure on him that was pressure of Yamamoto. I don't know that there was a pressure on him as the pressure on the first great modern-day superstar, Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, when Suzuki came here, there was no such thing as social media. But I do remember the first spring training that he was in Seattle, because the Mariners shared the spring training camp with the Padres. I stayed over one day just to watch him in batting practice, just to find out what he was all about and his unique stance and all. But I don't think the pressure was as great on him, because there wasn't social media. There wasn't a world of journalists walking down every hallway with cameras on their cell phones, shooting everything he did. So it's different for Sasaki. He's really good, but he's on a team that's got other mega Pacific Rim stars on it.
Now, do you see a scenario where Sasaki is not a starter, but maybe a bullpen guy?
No, I think he's signed to be a starter. And they're really deep in the bullpen. They got so many pitchers. We did the list a couple of weeks ago. 23 pitchers have had success at the major league level. Now, some of these guys are already gone to the disabled list because they're still in rehab mode, and some of these guys are going to have options, and they've traded one guy away already. So, no, he'll be part of the rotation. They're talking about Yamamoto starting opening day against the Cubs in Japan. Sasaki will pitch the second day, but he'll be on maybe a pitch count, and he'll also be on every 6th day. That's how they want to use him.
Interesting. All right, here we go. Okay, here's a shout out from our buddy Roy. And he goes, Habs in 93. Hi, boys.
Not bad. That was back in the day. That was when they beat the Kings. Montreal, great hockey city.
Yeah, I think Rick also chimed in with that. 93 Canadians over the LA Kings.
Exactly.
So thanks for the correction, fellows out there.
I was in Montreal for that. I was at the Forum. I did my talk show from the Forum.
Oh, you did?
Prior to that, I did my talk show from the gondola at Maple Leaf Gardens. What a thrill, being a hockey junkie, etc. So, yeah, Montreal was really good. Not as good as Montreal was back in the day. I'm going to pull this phrase out. You don't know what this means. You cut class. They taught French at UCSD, because I know you went to the beach. Le Bleu Blanc Rouge. The red, white, and blue. Les Habitants. Montreal Canadiens. Now, back in the day, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, the Montreal Canadiens, stretching from Jean Beliveau to the legendary Guy Lafleur, that was a couple of decades of absolutely phenomenal hockey. So Montreal, those fans are just so electric at the Bell Center to watch the first, the first games of this cup. It was really cool.
You've mentioned this before when you were in Toronto and you were broadcasting. What is it you say? It was the canopy or the
Gondola?
The gondola.
Old press box that hung out over the ice. You looked down on the ice. You didn't stand back here and look at the game there. You climbed through this catwalk and you walked back down, and there was the old historic radio booths going back to the days of the legendary broadcaster Foster Hewitt and Hockey Night in Canada. What a rush.
So I have in my mind originally was like something hanging from the rafters that you would be sitting in.
Yes.
But maybe it was more like a platform that extended from the seats.
It was in the upper deck. They built it out. They built like a press box that hung over the edge of the ice, and the fans were right down there below you.
When you walked out there, were you like walking on like a little narrow strip? And
it's called a catwalk. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And some of us don't handle heights real well, but it was cool.
Good for you.
It was cool. That was one of my greatest rushes. The first time I did a hockey game, when I was in a World Hockey Association with the Cleveland Crusaders. My first broadcast was from the gondola at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. I thought I died and gone to heaven. It was so cool.
That's your childhood team too. You always rooted for.
Yes.
Okay, let's go here to Carlos. He goes, Lee, you mentioned the Lakers hadn't beaten anyone during their hot run, but they beat the Celtics, the Knicks in New York, OKC, and the Clippers, all without Anthony Davis and/or Luka Doncic.
Well, they did beat some good teams, but they also played Utah twice. They played Washington twice. They played Charlotte. So there's a bunch of bad teams in there. And now they're coming out of the All-Star break, and there's 30 games left. So you're going to have Luka, and you're going to have LeBron, and you got Austin Reeves. That's all you got. And by the way, you start playing real good people again, this back part of the schedule. Who is going to defend in the paint? Who's going to do all the dirty work and the rebounding? Because now your centers are Jackson Hayes and a guy they just picked up off the street, Alex Lenz.
Who?
Alex Lenz.
Who?
7 foot. I think his career average is 2 points, 2 rebounds a game. Yeah, he's been in the league 9 years because you got to have a backup or a third center on your roster. That's where you're placing all your hope. I mean, I read on social media, and we're going to get to social media. I read some people just bagging on me. I'm just dealing with the reality of who this roster is and whether or not you really believe they have enough. It's going to be able to compete against the big boys in the league.
Yeah, you get bagged on a lot by mispronouncing people's names.
Yeah, screw it. Who cares? You know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's Luka Doncic.
Yeah, it just depends who you talk to.
Well, apparently the C's in his last name are pronounced like a CH.
Exactly.
So it's not Luka Doncic or Doncic, it's Doncic.
This is coming from somebody who can't balance his checkbook. He's lecturing me. I'll just say Luka.
There you go.
Luka LeBron.
Luka, that works. Okay. All right, let's go here to Flegel, talk Padres. There's another Padre observation. San Diego is both a high-end Hollywood-adjacent resort city and a military-based community. Are they unable to translate these marks into elite-level media contracts and coverage? Are they just a twin sibling of the neighboring Angels?
That's probably a fair assessment that we are Orange County. Better place to live than Orange County, but we are Orange County in terms of distribution, population, and growth potential. But that being said, we're a pretty damn good baseball city right now because the product's been pretty good and will continue to be that way if the product continues to be that way. Now, if there's a drop off just because it can't support it, this is not a mega advertising marketplace. It's a big issue. There's not corporate support here as there would be in major market Los Angeles. So we are who we are, but we've proven if it's a good product, we're going to come out and we're going to support it. But I think that's a fair assessment. We are kind of like Orange County, who are boxed in, et cetera, too, by all things to the north.
I kind of really agree with that because Orange County and LA is kind of one big sprawl, you know, and so there can still be Angel fans, you know, in Echo Park or, up near Dodger Stadium. I mean, you could still have some of that. And
Not
it's like one
many.
big market where San Diego geographically is like, it's isolated. It's like Gaza, you're up against the water. You got the Camp Pendleton, the desert, and Mexico. So I think it's a weird geographic thing being here in the bottom left corner of America.
We're pinned, so there are a lot of Padre fans here. But this is also a melting pot of people who have relocated here, or in some cases, like me, got deported here, who are Red Sox fans and Giants fans and Padre fans and Yankee fans and Mets fans. And I always tell the stories. First time I met Peter Seidler, I said, this is a bonanza. If you have a good product, you will fill this place. You will draw enormous amounts of money. You will be printing dollar bills in the hallways at Petco Park, because not only will Padre fans or San Diego natives come enjoy baseball because the home team's winning, but you're going to get every Red Sox and Pirate and Giant and Cubs fan. And that's what it is. Hell, if that stadium could seat 50,000, John, with a good product, they'd probably average 50,000 a night at Petco Park, as long as the product is good, because everybody who's a Cubs fan would come to see their team. It'd be phenomenal.
Well, yeah, and the Chargers prove that as well.
Sure.
And even the Clippers. I mean, I remember when the Clippers played in the sports arena, I worked at those games selling popcorn up and down the aisles. And when the Lakers and the Celtics were in town, that thing was filled and it was electric. Mm-hmm. So San Diego fans will show up, but from a television perspective, we're like a little isolated box of 3.3 million people. My gut is that the Orange County DMA, if you separate it from LA, is probably still bigger than San Diego. That's my guess.
It's diverse. It's much more diverse, I think, than San Diego is. Phenomenal Latino population across Orange County. Not to say that we don't have it here in San Diego County, but up there, it's monstrously bigger. Somebody would have to do the research. What is the population of Orange County? I'm not just talking to Anaheim. I'm talking about the full sprawl of Orange County. I bet it's more than San Diego County.
Well, you have to also factor in Riverside County as part of that, because the whole Corona, Riverside area, that's angel country out there, So, I know I'm not sure if I buy off on the whole thing. We're a high-end Hollywood adjacent resort city. I've never heard that description of San Diego, like Hollywood adjacent.
Well, he probably stayed at Hotel Del.
Yeah, that probably qualifies. But this is like a regular. There's a lot of middle America here in San Diego, but it's just smaller. So, okay, let's keep moving. Let's go to Flegel, talk some NASCAR. NASCAR has always been this way. They sometimes show races from the past during rain delays. Sometimes they finish the race on the following day. Nothing has changed as far as the weather is concerned. Love Jimmy Johnson, not so much when he was stealing Jeff Gordon's thunder, but Johnson is arguably the best racer of the modern era.
He went through a real tough time. As he got to the end of his career, they weren't very competitive. Then he left that team. And then he got involved again. And he tried his hand at IndyCar racing, and he didn't like the pressure points of it. And obviously, Formula One is such a different animal, takes an awful lot of time to understand and cope with that. And then he got into NASCAR ownership, didn't do very well with the Legacy Motor Club. And then he became the majority owner this year. He'd gone abroad. He'd actually, I want to say Jimmy moved to Italy. He left Charlotte where he was, and it was Italy or France. He moved back to Charlotte. And then he became the majority owner. It was announced, 2 months ago. All of a sudden, he got this one race drive at Daytona. They put an extra car in, and he qualified. He just got in. But, geez, he goes from 40th and he finishes third. So, good situation. I think it opened his eyes how complex it is to be an owner-driver. But, boy, what a feeling. And he was running up front, and then he disappeared in that race. And I thought, well, it all caught up to him. And he was at the back of the pack, and then all of a sudden, with all the wrecks in front of him in the final 9 laps, three different wrecks, he went up third. I said, good for him. So, self-made guy, great driver. But NASCAR, NASCAR hasn't changed. I mean, the stuff that we saw in the final 9 laps at Daytona last night was like we saw when Dale Earnhardt was driving. You're in my way, you're going to be in the wall. Going way back to the days of Cale Yarborough and Davey Allison and the fights and all. This thing hasn't changed at all.
Isn't it weird how Daytona's biggest race is the first race of the year, where like football, the biggest game is the Super Bowl and it's at the end of the year? What's the deal?
It was set up. That's the way the France family set it up. And then the second biggest race it used to be called the Firecracker 400 at Daytona. That's run in July and July 4th weekend. Now the schedules have kind of changed a little bit, but the 500 is the 500, and it is a mega race. I've not gotten to the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte. I'd love to do that. I've been to the Indy 500 Hall of Fame because it's just absolutely phenomenal with the Indianapolis 500. But I'd like to go to Charlotte and visit that because I'm an old NASCAR fan. Yeah, I'm a little bit of redneck. Thank you very much.
My family, we were in the UK a few years ago, and we went to, was it Silverstone,
Yes.
right? Which is that F1 track and right outside of London. And that was cool. And they have a nice like museum there as well that we really enjoyed.
Okay, we move on.
Okay.
Little, thanks for being with us.
Okay, just a quick one here from Callan. He says 8 million people in Orange County, Riverside County.
Okay, so you
So
did the research.
yeah, so
So it's that 8 million is different than 3.5 million in San Diego County.
that's what I'm saying. I think it's a
Yeah.
bigger market. Yeah.
But if we claim, I own the I-15 corridor going up, Temecula, Bonso, Farbrook. That
Yeah.
belongs to me. That belongs to San Diego County. So if you add that in, maybe we're more than 3.5 mil.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of fans that are in Temecula, Padre fans,
Yep.
that have trouble getting the games because they're not in the local market. And so that creates a lot of confusion too.
At the end of the day, put a good product on the field, they'll come and watch you.
Yeah, build it and they will come. Okay, let's go here to Showtime LA. He goes, Lee, do you think the Padres are better than the Diamondbacks? They're very evenly matched.
I think they are right now. And obviously, Arizona's activity in the offseason, Arizona's pitching staff is really good. And Arizona, even though they lost Christian Walker, went back in the marketplace and added more people to their offense. And they got young guys that are playing pretty well. So I'd say these two teams are almost even Steven. I think getting Nick Pivetta from the Red Sox anchors the Padres pitching staff. I think their starting four is really good. And I think they're really deep in the bullpen. Now, they don't have a lot of room, John. If they have any injuries for their front four starters, then they're going to have a problem because I don't think there's a hell of a lot of depth there. Even though Waldron is still there and Vasquez is there and Johnny Brito, etc., they just can't afford to lose anybody in their starting four. Bullpen is really, really deep. That's why if they move Cease, although A.J. Preller told me, we don't have to trade anybody. We're going to start the season with what we got. We got four guys, and some of these guys could go 200 innings. But if they trade Cease, now they're going to delete from a very thin starting rotation.
I think every team not called the Dodgers could probably say the same thing. Yeah. They might have good 1 and 2, maybe a 3, and after that, it's like a crapshoot. But it's interesting how Preller is saying we don't need to trade Cease. So it seems like they're all in to start the season, and if things go sideways, they're going to be dumping people at the trade deadline.
Well, they'll dump 1 or 2, but see, I don't think they're going to get big market value. If we get to July 31st in the trade deadline and they're out of it, somebody wants to rent Cease for 2 months. That's different than renting Cease for an entire 162 game schedule. So I think you get less for Cease at the trade deadline, but they think they're good enough to be a playoff team. Why would you start to tear this thing apart right now? So that being said, they're also kicking the can down the road because they're going to owe luxury tax money. If they keep this roster intact, get to the playoffs, they're going to have a tax bill, and they've already forfeited draft picks and international money to get the trade or get the pitcher from the Red Sox. So there's still a bill that's going to have to be paid if they get to the finish line with this roster intact.
Well, then you're in the playoffs if that's the case.
And in the playoffs, you get $10 million for every series you're in.
There you go. Because if they're not in it and they have a tough season and they unload Cease, and they won't get much in return, but they'll get below the luxury tax and then avoid that penalty.
Exactly. And hopefully they would get a young pitcher who could step in and pitch at this level. But is he Dylan Cease experience and all the phenomenal things he's got? Probably not, but you'd get a young guy and you'd get budget relief there. But we'll worry about that as we'll kick that can down the road too. Okay. Let's just get to opening day and let's just see what happens.
Well, you said it's a 2-year window, you thought. And this is
last year was 1 year and they pissed that away.
And this coming year is the second year of your 2-year window. And you got Manny and all the other guys, and they're starting to get a little older.
Exactly. And there's not anything in the farm system. But Baseball America, MLB.com had the Padres ranked 28th in farm systems right now. They don't have very much.
Boots on the ground. AJ will replenish.
I concur.
Okay, let's go here to Angel talking about the Angels. He goes, Angels sign Yo Moncada, tells me that the Angels have enough of Anthony Rendon's excuse.
Well, I guess I'm going to step in front of that bullet and say this. Rendon never had an injury problem in Washington. He was a rock solid, tough guy. Played all the time, fairly productive. Got here and he keeps getting hurt. Now you can condemn Anthony Rendon and say, guy's injury prone, but he got hurt wearing your colors trying to play for you. Now he's been on the disabled list. When they put him on the 60-day DL this time with the hip surgery for the impingement, that'll be 13th time he'll be on the DL. And there's no doubt he's missed so many games and he hasn't been fair value for what they paid out. But he got hurt playing for you. So I think sometimes you have to cut the guy some slack and saying he got hurt trying to make plays for you. So let's not condemn him across the board. He wasn't a bum in Washington. It was a dollar issue there with the Nationals. Does he become a bum here? Well, a little bit. Some of the attitudinal things that happened last year, but the guy was still a pretty good player when he came through the door the first time. No?
He was a good player, but I think we're learning more about the guy. I think, was it Jonathan Papelbon that was commenting on him, saying both Rendon and JD Drew, neither one of them really liked baseball all that much. And if other players are saying that tells you something. So, I mean, Dude got paid, Dude got a contract. I'm happy for him at that level, but it's got to be the worst contract of this since the turn of the century.
Well, that and the Josh Hamilton contract with the guy had all the drug problems, and Arte Moreno gave him all that money, and then he relapsed a couple times, and that's it. I mean, the Angels have really been badly stung by the amount of money that Moreno has spent on guys that had all kinds of issues. Some of them injury issues, some of them obviously culture issues, some personality issues, and some obviously medical issues.
Yeah, drug issues.
Yeah, with Josh Hamilton is terrible.
Yeah, and then who was the other kid that died? Was it Skaggs?
Well, Skaggs was a drug overdose, yes.
Yeah, so just a lot of problems.
And then prior to that, Nick Adenhart got killed by a drunk driver, and he was their bright young pitcher.
Yeah.
A tragedy has stalked Angel baseball going back to the Gene Autry era. It's absolutely stunning. I wrote a column way back. You do a laundry list look at all the players that have had something terrible happen to them, broken necks, tragic auto accidents. Absolutely stunning the numbers of guys they've had who were pretty good players that had all these problems. Okay, let's move on.
And they had Ohtani and Trout, and they never won.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to Raul. He goes, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. Will Sean Lewis bring San Diego State football to the level of what Steve Fisher did to San Diego State basketball?"
New year, second year, clean piece of paper, but that's a problem because, I mean, you got to teach all these new guys everything you tried to teach the last group of guys who left, led by the quarterback Danny O'Neill. There's no doubt that, to me, Sean Lewis is a bright light. But this is such a different era in terms of recruiting players and having to hold on to players or re-recruit the players when somebody else is trying to steal your players. It's no different here than it is Wyoming at Fresno State. I mean, everybody's dealing with the same crisis. So I just hope they're not going to be 3-9 next season because then the question is raised, is this the right guy? I happen to think it's the right guy, but he needs to have a good season here, and they have to stop this hemorrhaging, the bleeding, the losing of all these players. It just, to me, it kills him. And I was so upset. And he may say one thing publicly to me at the press conferences, and John has heard me talk about this. You know, well, Danny O'Neill had a right to do that. Well, he's not saying the truth. And, you know, he ought to be terminally pissed that they invested so much in this young man as an 18-year-old, and they played him, they started him, and the kid played. I thought the kid played really well. And then the kid said, I need to go home. I need to be close to family. And 2 days after he left, he signed at Wisconsin, and he got a payday. And then 2 days after he signed at Wisconsin recruited a kid from the ACC who's going to be the starting quarterback. Danny O'Neill's going to sit on the bench. He'll probably never play. He was a starter here, and this is supposed to be the cornerstone going forward. Sean Lewis won't say that. I'm telling you this is my read of the real true story, that the kid betrayed the coach that put so much into the kid. Again, I'll ask, am I right or am I right?
Show me the money, man. That's what's going on here. Everything's changing. But I think Sean Lewis has an opportunity to do what Fisher did, because, I mean, if you were to look at all the group of 5 schools, you know, across America, San Diego State's got to be one of the most attractive in terms of having a big time sports program, great location, beautiful women on the beach, all of that going for it. I mean, I got to believe you'd want to play at San Diego State rather than Liberty University or Central Michigan or something like that.
I think they're all one and the same. But now this is the new world of college athletics. John, they're going to 105 scholarships at all the major Division I schools. Everybody's going to have 20 more grants to give to recruits. So if everybody has 105 over a 4-year window, that's how many less for San Diego State or Wyoming or other guys to get. They're going to, and if the transfer portal continues to operate, not only will Ohio State or Michigan have 105, transfer portal stays the same, they can still reach in and grab your quarterback or your star wide receiver and take them from a Mountain West, from a Mid-American Conference. Now maybe it's going to change. I'm hoping it's going to change within 2 years. But lost in all the argument is everybody's going from 85 to 105 scholarships, all the big boys.
But why do they want to expand it? They didn't feel 85 was enough?
They have the money. They can do anything they want.
Well, sure. I mean, maybe that's like a preemptive move to keep the talent away from the group of five. But you think like the NFL operates on what, like a 55-man roster or something like that?
63, and you get a 90 in the offseason.
Okay. But college has a lot more. But most of those guys on the end of the bench in college football with an 85-man roster still never play. So when you go out to 105, I mean, those guys are just practice squad guys.
Yeah, but you go to 105, that's 105 quality. That probably includes top kids that you would get to go play at a Mountain West Conference.
Like Danny O'Neill.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Sean Lewis. Let's give him another window. Let's see what year 2 is. But he's starting from square one all over again because the freshman quarterback that I thought they were going to build around betrayed him. They may disagree with me, but that's okay. That's why I do a podcast.
There you go. All right. Let's go here to Cam, talk some Padres. Because I definitely feel better about the Padres pitching than last week. But if you're saying Hayward is not in the mix for left field, then we still have weak spots in left field, DH, and catcher. That's a third of the lineup.
Well, Hayward is more center field, right field than he is anything else. I think he's an impressive guy. He's got to prove that he hasn't lost his bat speed. But they got him on a minimum contract. They got 7 guys now that are competing for the left field job, so that they brought all these guys in. Let's just see if any of these guys can grab it, and if there's somebody that could have a Profar type season there. They've got guys that'll rotate in and out of the DH spot. If Hayward plays right field one day, that means Tatis is probably your DH. If he's in center field one day, that means Jackson Merrill's your guy. You got somebody else to play third base. If Eggy Rosario makes this team, he could play third on an odd day, and Machado gets a day off his legs, and he'll DH. So they got guys that they can rotate through. Is it a complete team? No. There's a hell of a lot of other teams that aren't anywhere close to this. And even if this is an incomplete team, I still think they're pretty good. So they're hoping that somebody shows up and has a Profar type season in left field, and you go from there. I don't think they're destitute of talent. If I was in St. Louis, if I was in Minnesota, I think I'd really be pissed at what ownership's allowed those franchises to do, because I keep a track of all the offseason acquisitions, all 30 teams. And my list, I'm going to bring it in and show it to John. My list has got negligible acquisitions in Minnesota, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. How the hell do you excite your fans when you've done nothing except let players go?
Well, especially St. Louis. I mean, that's a franchise that everyone has deep respect for, in terms of their player development, and that's odd. But I was surprised, too, about the whole Hayward center field, right field, because we were thinking maybe a platoon with Connor Joe in left. So that kind of changes the dynamic around here a bit. So now you can maybe see Connor Joe, you're saying maybe first base, maybe DH, maybe left. So now you've got like the Dodgers and all these Chris Taylor types that are moving around.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. But Arise is your first baseman till he gets traded or he gets hurt. They're not taking him off first base. He might be your DH sometimes, which allows Connor Joe to be at first base. But I think Connor Joe's coming in here, try to stake as much time as he can in left field. So
I kind of like Eggy Rosario. I mean, what little bit we saw of him, he's good. Kind of a little guy, but he's a power packed.
He's got some pop.
Yeah, he does.
So, okay, we move on. We got social media here. We're going to get smoked on social media.
You want to go there?
Okay. No, but we'll just go ahead in there because there's some people banging on me. Before we start, let me just make this comment. There's a couple of haters out there. That's okay. Watch your podcast. Hate if you must. Somebody said I'm always banging on the Padres. Well, I went back and checked a column I wrote when the Padres got ready to open last season. And last I checked, the dude that wrote the column said they were going to win 88. So that meant they would have been 88 and 74. They won 93. And they were within one stone's throw of going to the National Championship Series. So for Hader out there who says, you're always bagging on the Padres. So you're bagging on the Padres. I picked them to win 88 last year. We'll get through spring training and I'll do another preview. Now, I beat them up the year before because the year before is when they actually choked away their lives in the playoffs. And that was a team supposedly was built, the Machado thing and all that. And that's where read the back of my baseball card. And I said, yeah, but the back of your baseball card showed 2023. What the hell? Your team tanked and you're the leader of your team. So I'm critiquing them when things don't go well and why they don't go well. And I'm complimenting them. So the hater out there in you, I did say 88 wins, wound up 93 wins and almost scared the crap out of the Dodgers. So I'm just telling you what I think when I read that I'm always hating. I'm not hating. I'm just giving you the facts and expressing an opinion off those facts. I'm right an awful lot of the time.
They say the same thing with the Dodgers. Like you're like a secret Dodger lover or you're a Dodger hater, and the whole thing.
How's that possible? I'm just covering the story and giving you opinions off the information I have covering the story.
There you go. Okay, let's get to social media, guys. Let's go to, here's a Padre one, and this is from OVB. He goes, 2 weeks ago, he was saying, he's talking about you, Lee. He was saying that the Padres were in trouble because they had so many holes to fill, and now they sign a back of the rotation pitcher, and they're back in the pennant race?
Yes. 2 weeks ago, their only acquisitions were an unemployed catcher, another catcher that hit 109. That was the bulk of their acquisitions, and I kept asking a question because all the players are off the board. You're going to do something here? Well, they wound up getting Pivetta. Pivetta is not an ace. He was forced to be an ace in Boston in a rebuild year. A little bit overwhelmed, got no run support. He went 6-12. His ERA was a shade over 4. No run support with rookies. Now, second half of the season, Red Sox really came into their own. All those kids started to hit. So Pivetta goes out there, and they got him. They got him at an affordable price for year one, but Preller kicked the can down the road. I'm telling you the truth here. This is a nice investment for this year, but next year he earns $19 million, which is a lot of money for a fourth pitcher on your staff, and that's what he is. He's a good fourth pitcher on your staff. But they also forfeited a number 2 draft pick, and they forfeited $500,000 in international money. So this is a good acquisition for this moment of time. I think their front four is really good, and they're really deep in the bullpen. But when I made those comments 2 weeks ago, all you had was Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz, and you're upset that I was critiquing the Padres offseason acquisitions? That's all you had was an unemployed catcher and another catcher who hit 109.
Well, they re-signed Tyler Wade. But this deal for Pivetta, people are excited about the fact that he's got really good metrics. I guess his strikeout ratio is really good. Niebla can work his magic.
Exactly.
And this could be another Seth Lugo, another Michael Wacha. And if that turns out to be the end result, we'll be thrilled.
He's pitching with a better team around him.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe dude goes 14-6 rather than 6-14.
Hey, we'll take that.
Okay. So we'll make a decision on whether it's a good or bad acquisition as the season progresses on. But don't be bagging on me because 2 weeks ago I said, Martin Maldonado, 39-year-old catcher, that's your offseason acquisition? Is that going to be a difference maker? 2 weeks ago, that was true. Now it's better. I feel better about the roster now because I got Pivetta.
What's the name of the kid that Preller got from Korea? What's his name? The pitcher. He's a lefty too, isn't he?
Well, Kyle Hart.
That's what I'm talking about.
But he's never pitched at the major league level with any success. However, big left-hander, funky delivery. His ERA in Boston was 15.15. He got lit. Yeah, but he hardly pitched. Mm-hmm. So they never brought him back. He went to Korea, reinvented himself, changed his arm slot location, changed the variety of pitches he threw. He went 13-3, strikeouts and all that. That being said, that's Korea. Korea is like the Pacific Coast League. Maybe it's even AA. I don't know how good Korea is. But he's coming back, and he might be a long reliever, and they're going to give him some chances to pitch at the major league level. Maybe he starts at El Paso. Maybe he pitches his way onto the staff. But there's a whole pile of guys that are potential long relievers. The one that I'm keeping an eye on is Sean Reynolds, who I thought, the 6'9" guy, who was kind of a journeyman. He pitched really well in short stretches at the end of last season when they brought him up, and he's going to get first kick at the can to see if he can duplicate that and become part of this collective group that's going to lead to the setup closers that they have. So we'll just see if Kyle Hart is ready to pitch at the major league level. And nice numbers in Korea, but that might be like pitching at Amarillo. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect with that guy. We're going to find out. Hey, let's talk some Lakers. And this is with Cerveza. He goes, relax, Lee. We know we need help in the middle defensively, but we have an exciting team and something to look forward to. You just worry about your Padres and your Chargers. Good night now.
Oh, you should have stopped after the first sentence.
Relax, Lee.
Yeah, they're going to be fun. They got 3 guys, and they got the in and out performance of Rui Hachimura. After that, I don't think they have anything. And when you start playing big boys, crunch time, playoffs, do you think you have anybody to defend other guys' bigs in the paint? Huge debate to me. There's no doubt they got firepower with Luka and LeBron, and Reeves, I think, is a really fine player. Doesn't get a lot of national attention, but I think this third year, he's had a really good bounce back year. Last year, he struggled for the first half of the season. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it's a complete Laker roster. And if you're telling me you think you can go deep in the playoffs with Alex Lenz and Jackson Hayes as your center, I think you got problems.
When was the last NBA team that won a championship or close to one without a big-time center? I'm trying to think, and every team usually has one dude.
I can't hit the recall button on my brain right now about that, but everybody's got stars, and, the Giannis's of the world who helped Milwaukee win at one time, and all the great players that Houston had, the Twin Towers and all that, but that goes back a long time. The game, Boston is so bloody deep. If you compare the Lakers to Boston, you think they're going to beat the Boston Celtics in the playoffs?
No, not at all. Not at all. But you know what? The Bucks had Brook Lopez, didn't they? Like playing center. He's pretty good. He's just kind of very serviceable veteran. You can count on him. But the Lakers have no one like that.
They don't have any serviceable veterans that I don't think that are difference makers. Brook Lopez could kill you inside because he's good. Lakers had a center who was developed into a really good player. He plays for the guys across the street. Zubac, Clippers. He's kind of a warrior, different type guy, but so that's where we are. But Cerveza, just accept it as it is as a critique, and you always have the invitation to come back to me as we go to the playoffs and say, dumbass, you're wrong. But I also want you to come back to me and say, yeah, dumbass, you're right.
Okay. You are the franchise. Okay, let's go here. Talk Chargers. This is with Lenny. He goes, Mack and Bosa are gone, which means they can save a lot of money. Sign the best number 1 receiver.
Well, I think there's going to be a deal to get a receiver, although it does not. Now it appears it might not be Cooper Kupp because Dallas has made a bid to trade for him. And do the Rams want to trade a very popular guy to the other tenant in SoFi Stadium? I don't know. But the Chargers do have significant cap space. I'm not sure both those guys are gone. Now, Bosa's got a big cap number, 36, and he's got 1 year left. But, if you remove him, you got to replace him with somebody. That's a problem. They're going to try to re-sign Mack, but there's some other people that are going to try to re-sign Khalil Mack, but he's got a lot of miles and a lot of age on him. The best case scenario would be to keep them both for 1 more year and then go get a receiver. They need help in the offensive line. I'm led to believe they're going after an offensive center in free agency, maybe Ryan Kelly, Indianapolis, or Dolman, the starting center of Atlanta. I think you'll find they're going to sign somebody in the offensive front. They'll probably draft an offensive center. They need a right guard. And then obviously they need to find a way to get a veteran receiver in there to complement McConkey. And then they got to deal with the 2 rush edges. So going to be very interesting going on. But Lenny, I won't buy that they can let both those guys go, because if you let both those guys go, those guys are difference makers in terms of the pass rush department coming off the edge. So they got to sign one. Best case scenario, bring them both back on short-term deals and see if we can make a difference and fix everything else you need fixed.
Now, wasn't Khalil Mack thinking of retiring?
He wasn't. He announced he's coming back.
Okay.
But he's got to be re-signed. He is a street free agent.
Street free agent. I love that term. That's a hacksaw term right there. But when you look at the wide receivers, we made that list a few weeks ago. And it was like Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel. Who else was on that list?
Well, Cooper Kupp is the most affordable. and the Rams are going to pay a piece of the $20 million that he's owed to make that happen. Devontae Adams' contract is $27 million. None of it's guaranteed. I think if he's released by the Jets or if they trade the contract, you're going to have to give him some guaranteed money just to make him happy. Deebo Samuel's kind of a hybrid guy, receiver, kick return guy, running back. He's making $25 million. DK Metcalf in Seattle.
That's the other name. Big,
strong stud. However, there are injury factors. Also here, though, Seattle doesn't really want to get rid of him because he's an integral part of this mixed bag they have at wide receiver with the quarterback, Geno Smith. So the conversation about Keenan Allen has kind of died down, that he might not be available, that they might bring him back in Chicago to have a veteran presence to go with Caleb Williams for another year. Keenan's got a lot of miles. He was dinged up multiple times last season. So they'll find a receiver. I have a belief that Ortiz really knows where good players are hidden, and they'll make some deals.
What do you think they draft for?
They're drafting way at the back end of the first round, 20th or something. I would tend to think center, offensive guard. That's not sexy, but that's what they need. To make a different decision on the pass rushers, then maybe go get an athlete on the edge. I think that's what they do, but they're not drafting real high.
Yeah, maybe trade up. You think they'll do it? Any moves like that?
I don't know. Ortiz not afraid to make transactions, but how high can you go? That's the thing. I mean, you're not going from wherever they are, 20 to 5. The price is way too steep. And they got cap space. So if they draft well, and they did draft well last year with McConkey and the other kids that played, they draft well and then use your free agent money to select somebody that comes in and really adds, a.k.a. Cooper Kupp for 2 or 3 years. Money well spent.
Money well spent. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's talk a little Dodgers baseball. And this is from Red Wolf. And he goes, live it and breathe it. There's no other MLB team like the Los Angeles Dodgers for years to come. It's all about respect and tradition. They are truly the team that wants to win every season and have shown it to their team and their fans.
Do you want to sign that memo? Go ahead. No, I agree. And they have the resources because they're the number 2 market in the country. And whereas everybody else, I think, is just scared about just the luxury tax implications, they've just kind of blown by it. And they're willing to pay. Their number, I think their luxury tax payroll number is now up to $383 million. They can afford it, and they're willing to do it because they're drawing $4 million, and they have a mega TV contract, etc. And they have contracts that will be coming off the books next year, like everybody else does, so that they just rearrange how they spent. And they got young guys now. I mean, the fact that they got Yamamoto and they got Sasaki on a very affordable contract, and they still have Ohtani with all the deferred money out there. It's a really good situation to be a Dodger fan. I'll be fascinated. The LA Times wrote that the Dodgers are going to win at least 120 games.
120?
120. How about that? 120 and 42, I think they said the record would be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Who set, was that the Seattle Mariners who set that record?
116, yeah.
Okay.
And then didn't go anywhere in the playoffs.
Unbelievable. You know, I'll tell you what, I mean, like Red Wolf here, he's indicative of a lot of Dodger fans that are just saying, hey, man, this is a world-class organization. Mm-hmm. They do it right. They got good people. And you know, he's right. They are. But the other half of Dodger Nation, the fans, will say all the same things. We're good. We got good management. And then they'll lay in and say, oh, you Padres are like minor leaguers and we don't care about you. And there's a lot of that.
The correct phraseology is sucks to be you, San Diego.
Yes, exactly. And so that's, again, on one level, that makes the rivalry fun. But on the other level, I can see why, you know, people call the Dodgers the evil empire.
Well, they're about to become the evil empire. There will be booed in every stadium of they go into this season. That's okay. They'll play through it because they're really good players, a lot of good people, and I tend to think a really good manager. Okay, let's do a couple more on social media before we say sayonara.
Okay, let's go here. We'll talk a little more Padres, and this is from Johnny Owen. He goes, Pivetta, over 8 seasons, has pitched for 4 teams and has a 4.76 ERA, never had a winning season, 56-71 career. Much better? He's not a frontline pitcher. Lee equals Homer.
He's better than anybody else's number 4 guy, and he's just the 4th man here. He was force-fed. He pitched in Boston when they retooled the entire roster, had no run support early on. His ERA got better and better, more competitive. He's made himself a better pitcher. Yeah, 56 and 71. Started in a bad Phillies situation and then became a Boston Red Sox guy. But as a fourth guy at an affordable price, $1 million at least this season, with run support, more run support in San Diego than at Fenway Park, I think he'll be really decent for them. And then we'll just see. He's no injury history here, dating back for a long time. Power pitcher. I went back and looked at video. His sweeper is wicked, and he throws it a lot, and he throws hard. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He induces a lot of fly balls. Fly balls that would bounce off the wall in Boston are going to be caught here in the atmosphere at Petco Park. You know, the marine layer and all that junk.
Yeah.
So connect all these dots. Let's see what he does. But I like him as my number 4 starter. I think right now their 4 rotation is pretty good. They have no room for injury. Cannot afford to lose anybody in that front group. But you could say that about a lot of teams.
I think Preller was banking on getting Sasaki, and that whole thing didn't work out. I mean, but if you look at all the other free agents, they were just giant money, like Blake Snell and some of those guys. So yeah, like of the tier 2, this Pivetta guy could be interesting. But we'll see. I mean, I just hopefully Niebla's got something cooking for him.
I like Jack Flaherty, and he hung out there for a long time. I think everybody was scared by the medicals. There's something obvious with his back. While the Dodgers were not willing to, re-up him to a big long-term contract, and he wound up going back to Detroit on a 2-year deal. 2 years, 30, might have been 15 mil per season. But he pitched well in season. He saved their season. He got on postseason. Now he kind of struggled. I like Flaherty a lot, but not at 15 to 20 million on a 3 or 4 year contract.
I remember he was really good with the Cardinals.
Got hurt.
And then he disappeared for a while.
Went to Baltimore, didn't pitch well. Went to Detroit, changed his repertoire, stayed healthy. And, of course, Detroit was going nowhere, and then they shipped him to the Dodgers. And he had a lot of decent starts the second half of the season, kind of hit some bumps in the road in the playoffs. But dude is a fierce competitor. What was the term I used in October after the incidents with the Padres? Called him a red ass.
Yeah,
he is.
That was the whole Machado throwing the ball at Dave Roberts thing.
That's okay. They firebrand, but I would have liked to had him. I would have liked to have Buehler. Buehler wound up going to the Red Sox. Was it 1 year 15 mil or 1 year 21 mil for Buehler on a 1-year deal? But the only concern is that Buehler has obviously had 2 elbow surgeries, and are you getting to Walker Buehler another year removed from the second elbow surgery? You're getting a Walker Buehler who used to be Walker Buehler, or are you getting an older Walker Buehler who's had 2 surgeries? I don't know. That's why he hung out there on the limb so long. It's interesting to get to the end of the day. Red Sox let Pivetta go in place of Walker Buehler, a little bit higher price.
Now, remember last season, there were a lot of guys like Profar that were decent major leaguers, and no one was signing him until the bitter end.
Well, he was a 246 lifetime hitter. I mean,
but are there guys like that this round that are still sitting out there?
Everybody's gone.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'll bring my list in and we'll paper the wall here with my list. I have lists for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there's hardly anybody left at all.
Interesting.
On the free agent market. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed everything we try to bring your way. Just a reminder, you like sports, please check my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's there right now. It's fresh every morning. You'll get all the late breaking stories. Doesn't matter what sport you like. You can just go from one group to the next and scroll through. It takes you 5 minutes to read the best 15 minutes in sports.